All right. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Couch Warrior podcast. As always, I'm your host, Mike, and today we're going to be breaking down UFC Vegas 91. So yeah, not the best card in the world at all, but it's a card nonetheless. Probably going to be my smallest slate, if not ever, definitely in this last year or these last 2 years. Not going to have a lot of bets. Right now, I finished taping the whole card. We have one bet, and I think I have like 3 written down that I'm considering, and we'll go over them over the show. But yeah, be careful this card. Definitely a card to be careful with. There's a lot of shaky spots. I don't love a lot of the favorites. Not many parlay pieces in my opinion, but let's hop right into it. We've got 13 fights, and the first one up, we've got Maheshate versus Gabriel Benitez. Maheshate 9-3-0. He's 24 years old, 6 feet tall with a 71.5-inch reach. Benitez 23-11-0. He's 35. He's 11 years older. He's 4 inches shorter, and he's going to have a 71-inch reach as well. I like Maheshate here. I get why people are low on him. Not really. I mean, I understand theoretically why people are low on him. I think it's a bit of recency bias. They're looking at his last few fights saying this guy sucks. But to me, he's the much younger guy. He's a much bigger guy. He's a lot fresher. He's taken a lot less damage. He's got a lot less pro fights, so he's not as experienced, but he also hasn't taken all of the damage that Benitez has. Benitez has been knocked out multiple times at this point. I think he's really fading. I don't know if I'm ready to call him washed, but I definitely don't like what I see anymore. I do still think he's a good striker. I think he got a little bit slower. He can't take shots as well, and he tends to fade a bit. And a guy like Maheshate, his cardio is not elite, but he doesn't fade. He's got pretty good cardio. He can keep going in the third round, even when he's getting pushed. I don't think that Benitez presents the same kind of threats that Maheshate's been struggling with, right? Like Slava Borshev is a stud striker. Slava is such a good striker. He's got crazy fast hands, a lot of power. He's nasty. He's accurate. And he's just a lot more dangerous than someone like Benitez, in my opinion, at least at this point in his career. Benitez is also up at 155 now. He came up against Miller, and he's staying at the weight class for now, at least. And then the Rafa Garcia fight with Maheshate, right? I mean, Rafa's a really good wrestler. Benitez doesn't wrestle, and when he does, it's not that great. He's not a strong wrestler, nothing like that. I think that if he does grapple, Maheshate will stuff anything he throws his way. And even in that Garcia fight, Maheshate was still throwing back. He was still landing. He was using those knees and elbows, which are nasty. He made Rafa bleed. He was like literally leaking blood in that second round. So the way I see it is, can Benitez land some clean shots? Absolutely. Could he maybe squeeze out a decision? I can see it, but for that to happen, I think Maheshate would have to pull up and not throw anything, and I don't really see him doing that. I think Maheshate will come out here. I think on the feet, he's much more dangerous at this point. I think he's got a lot of tools and weapons he can catch Benitez with. The way he mixes the knees and elbows into his combos, the step-in knees, step-in elbows, doing it against the fence. I love all that stuff. I think he's going to land a lot more damage on Benitez. If he's not, if he's not landing more output, at least his are going to be the more damaging shots. And we know how judging goes now. Damage is king. So, yeah, I think Maheshate takes this. I think he probably finishes Benitez. I'm thinking like a round 2 knockout, maybe a round 3 knockout. I am thinking maybe it'll have something to do with the knees and elbows. So, yeah, the pick's Maheshate. Minus 190 on the money line. I don't like it too much. It's a little scary against a guy who still is a good striker, a serviceable fighter in Benitez, and a guy who could pull up, and against lower competition like Ontiveros, like Justin James, he can pull up and get those dubs. But at this point, I think Maheshate might just be a little bit too much. So, yeah, give me Maheshate KO, and we can move on. No bet there, though. At least not yet. Next up, we've got Ivana Petrovic versus Liang. Petrovic, 6-1-0. She's 29, 5'8" with a 70. Let's call it a 71-inch reach. Liang on the other side, 19-7-0. She's 27. She's 2 years younger. She is going to be 3 inches shorter, and she's going to be at a 3-inch reach disadvantage. So, look, Liang is one of these fighters that I love losing money on. I bet her on all 3 of her UFC fights, and of course, I've lost every single one of those bets. And she looks good for a second, in the first round, she comes out there, she's got high output, she goes for it, she gets that wrestling going. She's a decent grappler, decent offensive wrestler. Defensive wrestling, like takedown defense, we don't have a ton of information on. I don't know if it's that great. I don't know if it's that bad. We really don't have too much info, but from what I see, I imagine that once she gets tired, it's not very good. I think her striking is really bad. I think her striking defense is even worse, and her cardio is just not there. And the heart to keep fighting after you're gassed, just not there. Like we'll have fighters later on, like Onama, for example, who also gets tired, but he'll still fight through it. He'll still land and be able to finish or almost finish later in fights. Whereas Liang, once she gets tired, it's over. And Petrovic, I'm not high on her at all. I faded her with Lana Carolina. I don't think she's anything spectacular, but she's still young. She's still improving. She does have cardio. She doesn't wilt. She does have solid grappling. I do think she can get takedowns on Liang, especially once Liang is tired. On the feet, I don't love her striking either, but she's definitely cleaner than Liang. I mean, Liang, she's a horrible striker. She's so hittable. And even someone like Petrovic, who's primarily a grappler, should be able to get the striking going and should be able to land good shots. So to me, it seems like a system play at this point, similar to Herbert Burns, Petrovic round 2, 3. That's what I'll be looking at. It's disgusting prices right now. I think it's like plus 275 for round 2 and like plus 350 for round 3, which is horrible. That's like that's even worse than what we got Julio Arce versus Herbert Burns for rounds 2 and 3. But it's probably the move. It's just Liang, the way she fades it's crazy. It's crazy. Let's catch up with the chat real quick though. We got AWMD. What's up, brother? Thanks for tuning in. Let's go indeed. Glenbot, as always, my brother, thank you for tuning in. Grateful dude, thanks for coming on, brother. Under 1.5 definitely makes sense. Definitely makes sense. I hate under 1.5s in general, unless it's like a crazy price. Usually I don't have much interest on it. I'd rather just play like round 2, 3, because I could see this being extended. I could see this lasting longer than even the second round because Petrovic isn't a crazy finisher. She's primarily a grappler. So I think we're going to see a lot of just lay and pray time where she's just on top, maybe landing some shots, but nothing too insane. So I wouldn't be shocked if we went past the over 1.5 or something like that. Not that I want to bet it, not with a fighter like Liang. But for me, I think the better way to tackle it is just go for the Petrovic round 2 and 3. And we can move on. Next up, we've got James Llontop versus Chris Padilla. Llontop 14-2-0. He's 24 years old, 6 feet tall with a 73-inch reach. On the other side, Padilla 13-6-0. He's 28. He's 4 years older. Going to be 3 inches shorter, and he's going to have a 1.5-inch reach advantage. It's hard with Padilla because I just don't know how good he is. I don't have enough tape on him. His most recent fights, Justin James and Minasian, they're both behind paywalls, $20 to watch each fight. There is no way in hell I'm paying $20 per fight to figure out if I want to bet 13-6-0 Chris Padilla, because I probably won't want to. A win over Justin James doesn't mean much to me. I don't think James is UFC caliber in the least bit. But from what I have seen from Padilla on the older tape, he's okay. He can grapple. He's a decent wrestler. His striking is all right. His striking defense is pretty bad. He's got that chin up in the air. Don't really like much from what I see. And to me, he's just a journeyman. I don't really think he's a high-level prospect or anything like that. And on the other side with James, I do think he's a prospect. I do think he has a high ceiling. I don't necessarily think he's elite or top level just yet, but I see all the tools that I think he needs to be a top-level fighter. And he is only 24 years old. He is going to be improving every single fight, training with good guys, training with Diego Lopez. He's a really, really solid striker. I like the striking a lot. I think he's clean. He's nice in the clinch, really nice knees, elbows, and just a lot more tools on the feet than someone like Padilla. And he doesn't really offensively grapple, but his takedown defense is good. His scrambling and get up abilities are very solid. So even if Padilla can get him down, I don't think that Padilla has the wrestling or control to really win too many minutes that way, or to be able to submit James or ground and pound him. I don't think that's going to happen. I think most likely outcome, James is able to stuff most of the shots, beat up on him on the feet, and maybe get a finish in the second or third. That's what I'm thinking here. So James is the pick. James by knockout is a play that I'll maybe consider once the props are out and I can see what the price looks like. But in terms of the money line, I mean, am I going to lay 4 units on him to win one? No, not without seeing more on Padilla. Maybe a possible parlay piece, but I don't know what to parlay him with. I hate the entire card. I hate all the favorites. I don't really like anything as a parlay piece other than him, really. So not sure what I'll do there. Moving on, we've got Ketlen Souza versus Marnic Mann. Souza 13-4-0. She's 28, 5'3" with a 63-inch reach. Mann 6'2-0. She's 31. She's 3 years older, 3 inches shorter, and she's going to have the 1-inch reach advantage. I hate this fight. I hate this fight with a passion. I think Mann is horrible. I think she's really bad. I don't really know what she's going to do to win this fight. Her striking is abysmal. Her striking defense is horrible. She's extremely hittable. Doesn't have much offense at all. Not much striking upside at all. Her wrestling is like the only thing she has, and I don't even think she's that good of a wrestler. Can she get takedowns here? Probably. Souza's takedown defense is pretty weak, but Souza, at least, even when she's on bottom, while her get-ups aren't good and she's often not even trying to get back up, she's at least throwing up submission attempts. She'll throw elbows from bottom. She'll throw strikes from bottom. Whereas Mann will just lay on her. Mann doesn't really have great submission offense. She doesn't really have great ground and pound. I don't know how she's going to win this fight. It would have to be Souza just not doing anything at all. But at the same time, do I want to back Souza at minus 300? Absolutely not, because I think she's terrible too. Her striking is fine. It's like her strong suit, but it's not even that good. The front kicks are nice, decent hands, decent power. Nothing really spectacular. I think the submission upside here is decent. She doesn't have too many subs, but she does go for them. And we are going to have a lot of grappling, in my opinion, or at least a lot of grappling attempts and grappling positions where a man will maybe try to shoot. She'll have her head out there, possible guillotines or front chokes. If Mann does get on top, I can see Souza throwing up a triangle or an armbar. So that's something I'll look at, is maybe Souza by submission. I think it's sitting at like plus 800 or something like that. Let me check real quick. Yeah, plus 850 for Souza by sub. I think that might be a decent look considering what kind of fight we're probably going to get here. I get why people are on Souza knockout too, because she does have more knockouts than subs. She does hit pretty hard, and Mann is super hittable, not super durable. But I don't necessarily see the knockout happening personally. I don't rate Souza's striking that highly. I don't rate her power that highly. I think she's either going to win a really boring decision or she's going to sub Mann. I wouldn't be shocked if Mann stole the decision here, was able to just ride it out because Souza's too happy to play off of her back. I can see that, but I'm not betting on it. I don't want to back Mann at all, and I definitely don't want to stake too much on Souza. So if it's anything, it's just going to be a Souza sub. More than likely not going to have a play on that fight, though. Moving on, we've got Dontale Mayes versus Kyle Machado. Mayes, he's going to be 10-6-0. He's 32 years old, 6'6" with an 81-inch reach. Machado on the other side, he's 8-2-1. 29, he's going to be 3 years younger, 2 inches shorter, and he's going to be at a 3-inch reach disadvantage. Hate this fight. I hate this. I hate all of them. But this one, I really don't like. Machado's awful. I think Machado's terrible. His striking is just wild shots. Everything's got a huge loop to it. Overextends like crazy. The takedown defense, he did defend a lot of takedowns against Mick Park, and I'll give him credit. He does some things pretty well. The underhooks are pretty good. The get-ups are decent. But once he's on his back, he has a really hard time getting back up. And if Mayes is able to take him down, if Mayes actually comes out here and decides to grapple, I could see Machado being stuck on his back. I could see Mayes landing good ground and pound, maybe getting a finish or just getting damage and winning minutes that way, scoring on the judges' scorecards. But, you can't trust Mayes to do anything right. When was the last time he really tried to grapple since the Parisian fight? He doesn't really do it. Everybody's holding their breath waiting for D1 Mayes to come back, and he hasn't come back yet. And if he does shoot, his wrestling's all right, but Parisian has a terrible ground game, terrible takedown defense. Machado, I think, is a little bit better. He's got a little bit better takedown defense. I rate Mick Parkin decently. He's all right, and I think it was relatively impressive the way he stuffed most of those shots. I think he stuffed he only gave up 3 out of 17, something like that, similar numbers. But the main thing for me here is Mayes just doesn't have that dog in him. If the fight's not going his way, he doesn't really turn it up. His hands are super low. Both guys fight with their hands low, and I think Mayes does hit harder, and I do think Mayes has better striking technique overall. I like the jab. I like the 1-2s. Most of his strikes are straight down the pipe, so that's a good thing. But again, he's so hittable. His output isn't as good as Machado's. I trust Machado to throw more. I trust Machado to fight for my money more. Not that I'm going to put it on him as a favorite. There's no way. Maybe if he was the underdog when I got to it, I'd consider it, but he's not. So definitely not betting him as a favorite because I do think he's horrible. I do think skill for skill, Mays is better. I do think there's a clear path here for Mays in the grappling. But the question is, do I trust him enough to put my money on him? Not really. I think he can wilt. I think that on the feet, he can get hurt by Machado. I think he can give up a lot of minutes. So, yeah, I'll pick Mays to win. And maybe if he becomes a huge underdog, I'll take a shot. But right now, I have no interest in Mays. So I'm going to pass and we can move on. Let me catch up real quick. We got my guy Hadim in the chat. What's up, brother? Always love when you pull up. Double Vision. Thanks for tuning in, brother. How you doing? And let's move on. So next, sorry about that. Next up, we've got Austen Hubbard versus Michal Figlak. Hubbard, 15-7-0. He's 32 years old. 5'10" with a 71-inch reach. Figlak on the other side, 8-1-0. He's 27. He's 5 years younger. Same height. He's going to be at a 1-inch reach disadvantage. This is another fight where it's like, I'm not crazy about it at all. I guess Figlak should be the side. He's the rightful favorite, but do I want to back him at -170 with him being out for almost 2 years, with him not having a great performance in his first UFC fight? You know, I will give him some credit. Fares Ziam is a very solid fighter. He's a hard guy to make your debut against. I think Ziam is a better fighter than Hubbard. Pretty confident in that opinion. And I do think Figlak has the tools here, right? Because Figlak's takedown defense is solid. He does have good takedown defense. He showed that in fights like the Agi Sardari fight. He can defend the takedowns. When he is taken down, he's got good scrambling. He's got solid get-ups. He's the better striker. I have very little doubt in that in this matchup. He's going to have more power. I know Hubbard's never been knocked out, but I do think Hubbard's starting to fade a bit. I think the damage is starting to add up. All the time in the cage is starting to add up. And I wouldn't be shocked if Figlak was able to hurt him and put him out. I do like the power for him, and I just like his striking a lot more. Goes to the body. Hubbard is just serviceable. He's a good underdog a lot of the time when he's fighting lower caliber guys. I've backed him in the past plenty of times. But for me, I don't really know if Hubbard can. He could pull it off. That's why I'm hesitant to play Figlak, right, at -170. If I didn't think Hubbard could pull it off, I'd be laying the chalk. I could see a world where Hubbard does pull it off. If Figlak comes over here, and again, he's not himself. He's not fighting like we saw in Cage Warriors. He's not throwing as much. He doesn't have as much finishing instinct. Then I can see Hubbard getting some takedowns. I can see Hubbard competing on the feet. He is competitive. He's serviceable. His striking isn't horrible. I can see it. But I think the most likely outcome is Figlak can handle the grappling coming from Hubbard's way, land the better shots, win the minutes on the feet. I'm thinking either Figlak late or Figlak by decision. And let me catch up with everybody real quick. Got my guy Doozy in the chat. What's up, brother? Thank you for tuning in. Always appreciate it. And giving us a little dono. Appreciate you, brother. Double Vision saying we're on Maze. I get it. As the underdog, I get it. Dixon over here. What's up, Dixon? Mike, I don't care what anyone tells me. I'm 100 convinced you're Kyle Machado's twin brother. I can see it. I can see it. I don't know if it's a compliment or an insult, but I'll take it. He's a better fighter than me. I'll give him that. UFC 300 aftermath gave me depression. I was butthurt. It was over already. I think we're all still coming back. I'm still watching that Max video every single day. I mean, what a beautiful knockout. What a sick night. Sick night of fights. All right. Glenn Bob, why do I get the feeling Austen wins a split decision? And we're all, I wouldn't be scratching my head. I wouldn't be too shocked. You know, like I said, Figlak was not impressive in his debut. And if he comes out here and fights so super tentatively again, doesn't throw, I can see Hubbard taking it. But I think the most likely outcome is Figlak here. I think if you got an early line on Figlak closer at -125 or whatever it was, I think that was a good bet. Think damage wins, not control, because they're well matched. Yeah, that's pretty much how I'm seeing it. Figlak's just going to be the more dangerous guy on the feet, more power. And yeah, dude, it was so good. So good. But all right, let's move on. Next up, we've got Rani Yahya versus Victor Henry. Yahya, 28-11-0. He's 39 years old, 5'6" with a 68-inch reach. Henry on the other side, he's 23-6-0. He's 36. He's 3 years younger, 1 inch taller, gonna have the same reach. I don't really understand why people want to bet Yahya. I get it kind of, but not really. just hear the same narrative every time. Henry's 36. How are you going to back a 36-year-old middle of the road guy who's minus 400? I mean, I'm not going to bet him at minus 400, that's for sure, but I don't necessarily think this is a time to bet Yahya. Yahya is a really, really good jiu-jitsu practitioner. He's absolutely nasty on the ground. Once he gets you down, it's hard to get back up. He has really good control because of the jiu-jitsu. But his wrestling is not that good. Like, actually getting the fights to the ground, it's okay. He's got a nice single leg, but it's not hard to figure it out. It's not hard to defend against if you know what's coming. And at this point, everyone knows what's coming with Yahya. His striking sucks. It's horrible. He does have good moments. He has had good moments, like in the Enrique Barzola fight. But overall, I don't like his striking at all. I think he's extremely hittable. He's very one-dimensional. Victor Henry does have good takedown defense. This isn't a Sunsao or Barcelos, who I think are much better offensive wrestlers than Yahya and who actually have hands to set up their takedowns, whereas Yahya does not have those hands to set up his takedowns. He depends on just being able to catch the leg and bring his opponents down. He doesn't really have the hands to set anything up nicely. So I think Henry can stuff anything coming his way. And on the feet, I think Henry's a much better striker. I think he's got way better output. And if he comes out here and throws high output like he does sometimes, not always, I do think he should roll here. So I think Henry's a spot. I don't think it's worth betting him at minus 500, but I do think he'll win. Definitely not interested in the underdog. If anything, I'd be looking at Henry round 2 and round 3, something like that. Let's see what we got here. I don't get the hype behind Yahya. Who'd he beat? I mean, yeah, he has okay wins, and he has okay performances even in his losses. But at this point, 39 years old, super one-dimensional. I don't see it. Moving on, though, we've got Tim Means versus Uros Medic. Tim Means, he is 33, 15, and 1. He's 40 years old. 6'2" with a 75-inch reach. On the other side, Medic, 9, 2, and 0. He's 31. He's 9 years younger. 1 inch shorter, and he's going to be at a 4-inch reach disadvantage. For me, this is dog or pass, and I think I'm going to get to the underdog because the line keeps climbing. He's already plus 260, and people still want to play Medic. So you know what? Keep doing it, and I'll probably have a half-unit shot on Means. Look, Medic is the rightful favorite for sure, but for me, it's mostly because he's a younger guy, and he's just more dangerous. I don't necessarily think skill for skill he's leagues above Means. He's a good striker. He's very dangerous. He's got a lot of tools, a lot of kicks, knees, all that kind of stuff. He's a good finisher. I don't think he's ever been to a decision or never won a decision. Pretty sure he's never been to a decision. But and he does have heart. He can come back from adversity. In the Semmelsberger fight, he faced plenty of adversity and came out there and still got the finish in the 3rd round. And a lot of us didn't know if he'd even be able to do something like that because we haven't seen it, because he isn't often leaving the 1st or the 2nd round. But Tim Means, he is 40. I get it. He is fading. Absolutely. He's not what he used to be. But he's still pretty good. He's still pretty serviceable. I think he's still relatively durable. If he does take some big shots from Medic, I can see him going away, but I do think he can take some shots. I think if he mixes in his wrestling, he mixes in some of that striking we've been seeing, I think he's live. He's still a good striker. I like it when he mixes it up, goes to the body. We saw a really great performance from him against Fiallo. Fiallo, I get it. He's not great, but he is younger. He is a solid striker as well. And Means was able to just completely dispatch him. He's still getting the takedowns against pretty much all his competition, even at this age, even at this stage in his career. So for me, I think that Tim's live. I think he's a live underdog. I do not think he should be plus 260. Medic, the rightful favorite. I'll pick him to win the fight. But in terms of a bet where my money's going to go, might end up with a little bit on Means. I just think it's a wide line, and I could see a world here where Means comes out, has a clean performance, and is able to win a decision. So give me Means in this one in terms of a bet, and we'll move on. Next up, we've got my guy Jonathan Pearce versus David Onama. Pearce, 14, 5 and 0. He's 31 years old, 6 feet tall with a 71-inch reach. Onama on the other side, he's 11, 2 and 0, 29. He's 2 years younger, going to be 1 inch shorter, and he's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage. So look, I think the most likely outcome here is JSP by decision, maybe a late finish. He is going to have a significant cardio edge. He is going to have a significant grappling edge. JSP at this point, we know what he is, and I love fighters like this. I love high-paced grapplers who can land a ton of takedowns, who have really good cardio, who don't fuck off, who don't get out of your face. a guy exactly like JSP. I love guys like that. I love backing them. They're often good bets. And even against Brito, he made some stupid decisions that led to him losing, but he had the tools to win that fight. Now, he does stick his head into the guillotine constantly with his takedowns. He isn't super safe with his neck, and he can be caught up with the sub like we saw against Brito. But I don't necessarily think that it's Onama who's going to come out here and submit him. The reason I'm a little nervous and hesitant to lay chalk on Pearce here is because Onama, while his takedown defense isn't good, while his cardio is pretty weak, his get-ups are good. He's very explosive. He's very athletic. He's good at getting back up on his feet. He can scramble. And even when he's exhausted, right? Like even in the Nate Landwehr fight where Nate was able to gas him completely with the striking, whereas JSP, I think, will gas him with the grappling. But regardless, he was tired in that third round, but he was still landing. He was still hurting Nate. He still got Nate down. Like, even when he's beat, even when he's exhausted, unlike Liang, he can actually keep going. He can actually land big shots. He can actually still win the fight, still finish the fight. So because of that, I'm hesitant. If anything, I'd be more interested in Onama because again, I can see JSP getting those takedowns, landing the ground and pound, being competitive on the feet. But every time Onama throws on the feet, he lands harder. He hurts JSP, and I can see him finding that finish. So I'm gonna pick JSP to win, but I don't think I can get to a bet here on him. This is one of the fights that are on my list of I want to retape this with a fresh mind. I want to look at it one more time, get a good look, and then we'll see. Maybe I'll even end up on Onama because I do think he's a live underdog. I think he's sitting at like plus 150 now. Let me check. Yeah, he's sitting at like plus 150, plus 142, depending where you look. I don't hate it. I don't hate it, but at the same time, I'm not running to the window to bet it because I do think that between his cardio problems and between his takedown defense not being too strong, I do see a very clear path for JSP. So I am going to pick him to win, but for now, no bets. Moving on, we've got Jhonata Diniz versus Austen Lane. Diniz 6-0 undefeated. He's 32 years old, 6'4" with a 79.5-inch reach. On the other side, Lane 12-4-0. He's 36. He's 4 years older, 2 inches taller, and he's going to have about the same reach, 80-inch reach. Real quick, let me catch up with the chat MMA clips. Let's go. What's up, brother? Thanks for tuning in. Hadim saying he likes Onama sub. JSP had a serious neck injury. Could be why he tapped. I mean, I think he tapped so fast because Brito's got a crazy grip, but I get the angle. I just don't necessarily think Onama's got the sub threat, but could see it happening. Could see it happening for sure. Don't hate the play. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too, Doozy, because Brito just has a grip on him. The dude is he's ripped. But yeah, so does Onama. But all right, we can move on. So for the Lane Diniz fight, I hate this fight. I hate it. I hate both guys. I guess Diniz should win. This is a pretty favorable matchup for him. They're giving him a guy who does not really wrestle ever. It would be good if he did. He's got a path here, I think. Diniz is very untested in the grappling. He is a kickboxer. Usually those guys do not have great grappling. He's never been outside of the first round. We have no idea what his cardio will look like if he's pushed. And even though he's this kickboxer, I don't really think he's this insane striker. He is the better striker here. He's much cleaner of the two of them. He definitely looks like a much better striker. He mixes it up well. I like what I see. Hits real hard, goes to the body, all that good stuff. But he also, sometimes he overextends like crazy. He gets really sloppy with his shots. The Dana White's Contender Series fight, there were moments where I was like, I don't know about this. And then he had a fight. I forget who it was. It was one of these fellas. I think it was Duarte, who's like a tiny overweight man. And he was like getting those, not getting the takedowns, but he was pushing him. He was trying to get those takedowns. And Diniz, he was able to stuff it, but against a really unimpressive guy and a really small heavyweight. A guy like Lane with his physicality, he's really athletic. I give him the athleticism edge here. If he just went for takedowns, I think he'd be live here. His striking's all right, but it's very stiff. And the chin is just way out there. I just think that this is a pretty clear layup for Diniz. But am I running to the window to back Diniz at minus 250? No, hell no. He's never been out of the first round. We don't know he's very, very untested. Like if he doesn't knock out Lane in the first, what happens? I don't think anyone can confidently tell you what happens because we've never seen it. So yeah, Diniz by knockout. I'm not laying minus 200 for a KO prop. Even the KO round one, it's minus 125, something like that. I'm good to just pass here. If anything, I would play like lane round 2 or round 3, just because my assumption is Diniz doesn't really have the gas tank, but we don't know. It's possible that he does, and he can do it for all 15 minutes. He just hasn't been tested yet. So too many questions. I'm going to pass, and we can move on. What's up, Kiwi? Thanks for tuning in. Hope you're doing good, brother. All right, moving on. We've got so far my only bet on the card. We have Karine Silva versus Ariane Lipski. Silva's 17-4-0. She's 30 years old. She's 5'5" with the 67-inch reach. Lipski on the other side, she's 17-8-0. She's 30 as well. She's going to be 5'6", so she's 1 inch taller, but she has the same reach at 67 inches. Yeah, I like Lipski here as the underdog. I think it's a good underdog spot. I understand why people like Silva. There's a clear ground advantage here. Lipski, even though her ground game has improved, she still can be taken advantage of. She still can be caught on the feet as well. And Silva does have a lot of power, and her ground game is really, really nasty. But here's the thing. There's a few things for me here. I think that Silva's striking is pretty weak. Not her power. Her power is good, but the technique, I don't think she's a very good striker. The output is not good. She's very, very hittable. And the fight that stands out for me constantly every time she fights is the Yan Kuhi fight on the Contender Series. Kuhi is like 5'1", 5'2". She's super small, tiny reach, and she's a grappler, a wrestler. And she outstruck Silva on the feet. I'm not making this up. I'm not saying that's how it looked. She literally outstruck Silva on the feet. It's on the numbers. It's on the significant strikes stats. She was landing more against Silva, and it was clear. You saw it on the tape and the numbers. Not a good look at all. Even in the, who was it? In the Botelho fight. Again, the striking did not look good. Botelho was landing just as much as she was. Botelho was landing the cleaner strikes, whereas Silva just hits harder. Lipski, I think, is a much better striker than Silva. Much, much cleaner. I like her output a lot more. If this is on the feet, I favor Lipski 100%. And the ground game, while it still might not be great, it has improved leaps and bounds. And the takedown defense is so much better. I love her takedown defense. You guys know me. One of the only martial art I have any experience in is wrestling. And when I'm looking at takedown defense, I'm not just looking at the stats. I want to see, are they using their hips well? Are they looking for hand control? And are they going for the underhooks? And Lipski does all of those things. The hips are great. The hand control is there. And the underhooks are so on point. She's ready every time. She's got her hands low. And when they shoot, just shucks it up and goes back to her striking where she's stronger. So for me, I understand the Silva side. I get why she's a rifle favorite. I personally would have lined it much closer, maybe like Pick'em. That's why I think there's plenty of value at plus 130 on Lipski. But I also don't blame anybody who played Silva as an underdog. There's a clear path there. I think that's a good bet as well. I think either side as the underdog is the right play here. And for me, I'm going to favor the person that I can trust more in this fight, where I know that she will be able to stuff. I think she will be able to stuff takedowns. And on the feet, I'm very comfortable that she's the better fighter. Can she get hurt on the feet? Absolutely. Can Silva catch her on the ground? Absolutely. But at plus 130, I think it's a solid play. So give me Lipski here, and we can move right along. And let's see what we got here. The clinching against the fence is a pass. She does that way too often. Who? How does that win a fight? It doesn't anymore, but who are you talking about? Who really clinches that much? Silva early at plus 110. Like I said, I think plus money on either side is fine. Time to hop off the Silva train. Agreed with you there. Grappling probably will cancel out. Yeah, I mean, I just think that I don't rate Silva's offensive wrestling that highly. You know, it's pretty good, but it's nothing crazy. So I do think Lipski can stuff it. So yeah, give me Lipski and let's move on. Next up, we've got our co-main event. We've got Ryan Spann versus Bogdan Guskov. Spann 21-9-0. He's 32 years old, 6'5" with an 81.5-inch reach. Guskov 15-3-0. He's 31. He's going to be 1 year younger, 2 inches shorter, and he's going to be at a 5-inch reach disadvantage. Another fight that's just gross, you know. I don't understand how the hell you can lay minus 190 on Spann. Like, only thing I can think of worse is if you laid like minus 170 on Dontale Mays. That's just an insane thing to do. But yeah, Smith coming back here, getting his third fight against Spann, being real low key about it, using a different name. But look, Spann is a better fighter, in my opinion. he's the better striker. He's got a significant grappling edge. But can you trust the guy? No, you can't trust him. He's got terrible fight IQ. He fades very often. And you just can't trust him with your money, especially not at minus 190. If he was like minus 130, okay, yeah, that's a good play. Because Guskov, in my opinion, is not very good. But at the same time, there's very little info on Guskov. It's hard to get a read because his opposition outside of the UFC was horrible. Oezdemir is a much higher level, and he had his moments. He had a few good moments on the feet against Oezdemir. He was able to land some good shots, but overall, he got completely outclassed. And once he's on the ground, his ground game seems pretty deficient. Even on the regionals, we've seen him get taken down before, and it's not a great look the way he fights back up or what he does once he's on the ground. And in the Pauga fight, Pauga's okay, like Pauga's nothing special. That was a nice knockout. But I don't put much into it. I don't put much emphasis into it. So for me, I think Spann, if he comes out here, uses that jab, uses the 1-2, maintains the range, I think he's got upside there. If he goes for the grappling, I think he's got significant upside there. If he's smart, he's going to come out here, use some of his striking and set up the takedowns, get those takedowns and beat up on Guskov. I can see that 100%. I can see a Spann submission. I can see a Spann ground and pound knockout. But at the same time, I can't lay it because Guskov does have power. He's not a horrible striker by any means. He's a decent striker. And I can 100% see him bonking Spann. So I like Spann to win. Not enough to bet it. I'm sorry, guys. I know you guys usually prefer when I have way more plays. And you know me, I usually have a play on a lot of spots. But this week, it's really hard. You got to be smart. You can't just drown your bankroll chasing. And I just don't see things that are standing out to me. And while I think Spann wins, Spann minus 190 is not something I can get behind. So that's the pick, and we can move on to our main event real quick. Let's see what we got here. Hadim, I will put my money on whoever Spann's fighting. He's burned me so many times. Yeah, that's exactly why I can't lay chalk on him. Even though I think he's better than Guskov by a decent margin, can't trust him at all. And this is light heavyweight, and Guskov does hit real hard. So all right, let's move on to our main event. We've got Matheus Nicolau versus Alex Perez. Nicolau 19-3-1. He's 31 years old, 5'6" with a 66-inch reach. On the other side, Perez 24-8-0. He's 32. He's 1 year older, same height, and just about the same reach. So going into the fight, pre-tape, I thought that I would just lay the chalk on Nicolau. 5-rounder. I favor him here. I think he's got more finishing upside. I was thinking minus 170, minus 180, Nicolau makes sense. But then once I ran the tape, I just can't do it. My issue with Nicolau is that while he's got all the skills and he's really talented, A, I don't know if I can trust his chin. And B, this is more so the issue that I have, is that he just doesn't separate himself too much. All of his fights, almost every single fight is close. Even the ones where he gets a finish, it's close until he gets a finish. Against Schnell was landing a bunch of nice shots against him, and he wasn't throwing too much back Schnell's way until he got that finish. He didn't look great. Even in the the Dvorak fight, was that the one? Yeah, even in the Dvorak fight, I thought it was a bit too close. I didn't love what I saw, and I'm also not insane about the striking. I think he's a pretty clean striker, but he's not really throwing a lot of straight things. You're not seeing a lot of jabs from Nicolau. You're not seeing many 1-2s from Nicolau. Everything is kind of a hook or has a loop to it. And it's very similar to Perez. In my opinion, on the feet, they're very, very similar. I think Nicolau's got some more power. But Perez, he's a pretty good striker too. When he's putting it together, he's got good hands. He does throw straight sometimes. He's got nice leg kicks. We know all about that. The leg kick finish against Formiga. But at the end of the day, honestly, I just never rated Perez too highly. Really, I never did. I don't think he's got any impressive wins. All his wins are against lower level opposition. I think one of his best wins is against Torres, and that was a while ago. Other than that, like, he's not beating good guys. He beat Formiga. That was probably his best win, but Formiga was already out the door, already much older. And since then, when he steps up in competition, he gets mopped. Figgy gets him right out of there. Pantoja gets him right out of there. Mokaev, that was a better fight from him. Decent performance as a big underdog, but nothing crazy either. His output is pretty low most of the time. And, sometimes he depends on that wrestling. And is the wrestling really going to work against Nicolau? Nicolau's got really good takedown defense. And even if Perez can get him down, does he want to? Because Nicolau's got a really good submission game. He's got great jiu-jitsu. So for me, because it's a 5-rounder and Nicolau will have much more time to work and Nicolau has much more finishing upside, I still have to lean the Nicolau way. I do think he is the better striker, probably. I think he's got more power. He's got the submission upside. He could maybe get his own takedowns, even though Perez does have good takedown defense. I think we're likely to see a lot of striking, more so than grappling. But because Nicolau has the finishing upside, I do think he should win. But I can't lay minus 190 on him because he doesn't separate himself in these fights. He really just doesn't. He doesn't come out here and just spark guys. He doesn't come out here and just out volume guys. He doesn't come out here and just ride them out for 3 rounds on the ground, take their back and all that. It's always close and competitive, and I can't lay minus 190 on a fight that I think might be close and competitive. So for me, I'm picking Nicolau, but I can't get to it. So excuse me. That's it, guys. That's 13 fights. Only 1 bet so far on Lipski. Again, I'm sorry. I know a lot of you guys hate that kind of stuff when it's all passes, but we got to be smart with our bankrolls. There's a much better card next week with UFC 301, much better spots. I already have 3 bets on that card. I already played Mauricio Rufy at minus 130. I played Drakkar Klose at minus 180, and I played Brito at minus 172. Those are all plays I already made for next week. But this week so far, I just have Lipski plus 130. And I'll tell you guys the spots that I am looking at. So I'm going to be looking at Maheshate by knockout. I'm going to be looking at Petrovic round 2 and 3. I'm going to be looking at James Llontop by KO. And I'm going to be looking at Tim Means money line. I do want to retape JSP and Onama and see maybe if there's an angle there that I want to take. But other than that, I don't think I'm going to have many more bets on the card. I just don't see it. You know, I would parlay Llontop shamelessly at minus 400, but I don't know with who or with what. Maybe on a different card, maybe with LFA. I haven't taped it yet, but that's all I got. I really don't like this card. I think it's a tough one in terms of betting. So yeah. All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you, Kiwi. Thank you, Glenbot. Thank you to all of you watching. We got 82 live viewers right now in the middle of today's Wednesday, right? In the middle of a Wednesday. So that's nice. Thank you guys. Peace out and good luck this weekend. Let's get it.